But damn, Caitlin Clark tried her best to single-handedly save Stephanie White's sorry A. I'm just keeping it real. Boy, I mean, just go on. Caitlin Clark knocked down two threes. Stephanie White benched her. She benched her, and guess what? The Washington Mystics were off to the races. Off to the races. By the way, we'd love to see some pick and roll. Doesn't matter now. Leah Boston's hurt. She's out. For how long, we don't know. And the glaring weakness of no...
The paperwork was reportedly filed before the locker room had even cleared. Stephanie White is out after a defensive collapse against the Washington Mystics left the Indiana Fever searching for answers. The entire experiment has officially fallen apart, and nobody expected the resignation to happen this quickly. When your superstar, Caitlin Clark, scores 32 points and the team still loses because the defense cannot hold together, there is nowhere left to hide. Behind the scenes, the tension had already reached a boiling point that not even logo threes could cool down. This was not just another loss on the scoreboard, it felt like the final nail in the coffin for a coaching era that never fully understood the weapon it had in Caitlin Clark, and right now, the entire league is in complete shock.
And 2024 Caitlin Clark absolutely still exists. We saw it tonight. It was fun. She tried to pull this team up after it was getting dominated by the Mystics. Second, third quarter, domination by the Mystics. Stephanie White had no answers. Look at this. Second quarter. Look at this. 28-21 is where we was at headed into the second. 20-9 in the second quarter.
It was supposed to be the night the Indiana Fever finally defended their home court, but instead, it turned into a complete nightmare. You are tuning into the raw truth of sports, where nothing is held back. The Washington Mystics came into Indiana and played like they owned the arena, exposing every flaw in Stephanie White's defensive rotations. The Fever looked completely lost throughout the second and third quarters, while the coach stood on the sideline with no real answers. Caitlin Clark did everything she could to single-handedly save White's career tonight, but even a generational talent has limits when the system around her is fundamentally broken. Now the bad news is out, and the fallout could be massive for this franchise, especially after a game that never should have reached overtime at all.
And she missed some key, easy layups in this game. Guys, this Stephanie White experiment, do not let anybody blow smoke up your ass. It's not going to work. And I saw somebody say, you know, last year's playoff run might have been actually long-term not so great. Because guess what? Guess who started sniffing her own farts? Guess who subscribed to the...
The most baffling moment of the entire night happened right when Caitlin Clark started heating up. She knocked down two massive three-pointers in a row, the crowd erupted, and the momentum finally began shifting toward the Indiana Fever. Then, in a decision that left analysts throughout the arena completely speechless, Stephanie White benched her. She pulled her best player off the floor in the middle of a scoring heater. Predictably, the Washington Mystics took advantage of the opportunity and immediately went on a run the moment Clark sat down. You truly cannot make this stuff up. It felt like coaching malpractice at the highest level and showed a complete lack of situational awareness, ultimately leading to this seemingly inevitable split.
Might have been actually long-term not so great. Because guess what? Guess who started sniffing her own farts? Guess who subscribed to the, oh, we're better off without Caitlin Clark. Kelsey Mitchell can single-handedly carry us. No. You've got to have... Caitlin Clark had to go berserk tonight for them to even be competitive at the end of this game. She had to go berserk. She said, to hell with the coaching.
The Washington Mystics brought a level of physicality that the Indiana Fever simply could not match, and it exposed a major weakness in this roster. Right now, there is a serious lack of length and interior presence, and the Mystics took advantage of it every single time they attacked the rim. The combination of Shakira Austin and Aaliyah Edwards was absolutely dominant in the paint. They played with power, aggression, and nonstop intensity. While Indiana struggled to establish any rhythm offensively, Washington methodically dismantled them inside the entire night. From the opening tip, it was obvious that the Fever were physically overmatched, and the coaching staff never seemed to have a real answer for that size disadvantage. It turned into a brutal night for everyone wearing a Fever jersey.
She said, to hell with the coaching. I'm going to take over this game myself. And by the way, the lack of pick and roll is still just egregious. It's egregious. Oh, and on top of everything else, you've played 2 home games and you've lost them both. Home games don't grow on trees, folks. Caitlin Clark just put on one of the greatest fourth quarter performances in WNBA history to carry her team to overtime.
To make matters even worse, the injury bug struck at the worst possible moment. Aaliyah Boston went down, and the silence inside the arena was absolutely deafening. Right now, there is still uncertainty about how long she could be sidelined, but her absence immediately created a massive void in the middle that the Washington Mystics were more than willing to exploit. Without Boston anchoring the paint, the Indiana Fever defense completely unraveled. It felt like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion. The lack of depth on this roster is becoming impossible to ignore, and when your primary post player goes down, you expect the coaching staff to make adjustments. Instead, the team continued running the same ineffective sets that have haunted them all season long. For many fans, it felt like the true beginning of the end for the current regime.
You've lost them both. Home games don't grow on trees, folks. Caitlin Clark just put on one of the greatest fourth quarter performances in WNBA history to carry her team to overtime. She was 5 of 7 from three-point range for 17 points in 9 minutes. Berserk. By the way, Stephanie White still benched her a couple of times at some very strange moments. Very strange moments. I got to tell you.
The second quarter turned into a complete disaster that essentially decided the game before halftime. The Indiana Fever were outscored 20-9 during a brutal 10-minute stretch that felt endless for everyone watching. Stephanie White looked completely out of answers as the Washington Mystics tore apart her defensive schemes possession after possession. It was not just about missed shots, it was a total breakdown of basic basketball execution. Washington was getting whatever it wanted offensively, while Indiana looked like a team that had never played together before. By halftime, the scoreboard reflected 2 franchises moving in completely different directions. One team looked disciplined and coached with a clear identity, while the other seemed to be relying entirely on Caitlin Clark to rescue them once again.
We'll go threes tonight, folks. It was the most excited I have been since 2024 for one of these games. One of these games. Even my guy Whitlock had to say, oh, the thrill's back. It was back. Look at that pass. I mean, Caitlin with that pass to Kelsey, holy smokes. I mean, it was fire. Here we go again. Right here. Let's go. Down the court. I mean, here we go.
In the third quarter, the domination continued as the Washington Mystics won the frame 26-21. Every time the Indiana Fever attempted to make a run, the Mystics immediately responded with another big play. The combination of Stephanie Dolson and Aaliyah Edwards looked unstoppable throughout the quarter. Dolson exploded for 30 points, while Edwards delivered a dominant performance with 25 points and 13 rebounds. Fans can debate other rookies around the league, but Edwards played like the complete package everyone keeps searching for. She controlled the glass, shot an efficient 11 of 17 from the field, and consistently punished Indiana inside. More than anything, she became the anchor that prevented the Fever from ever building real momentum until the closing moments of the game.
Stephanie White truthers. This is not it. You know, I did see somebody say something. Stephanie White may be a great coach. She may not be a great coach for Caitlin Clark. I mean, that world could actually exist. It was like we got to the fourth quarter, and it was like Christy Sides was on the side again. Just Christy Sides was just like, you go do your thing.
Then came the fourth quarter, and we witnessed the version of Caitlin Clark that captivated the basketball world during her days at University of Iowa. She completely took over the game. It became one of the most explosive fourth-quarter performances in recent WNBA memory, and she nearly pulled off the impossible by dragging the Indiana Fever into overtime almost single-handedly. Clark erupted for 17 points in the final 9 minutes, knocking down 5 of her 7 attempts from beyond the arc during that stretch. It was pure offensive brilliance. She seemed to abandon the broken rhythm of the offense and decided to impose her own style on the game. The crowd came alive as logo threes, transition bombs, and elite playmaking completely changed the energy in the arena. Her final stat line looked unreal: 32 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds, while shooting 7 of 17 from deep. Even critics like Jason Whitlock admitted the excitement surrounding Clark felt fully revived. She was launching shots from near the parking lot and threading fire passes to teammates that should have resulted in easy baskets. Still, the fact that Clark had to play at such an extraordinary level just to keep the game competitive exposed major flaws within both the supporting cast and the coaching structure. Kelsey Mitchell contributed 24 points, but in overtime she faded badly, missing crucial layups and looking uncertain in key moments. Throughout the game, there was also a glaring absence of a consistent pick-and-roll offense, which felt almost inexcusable considering Clark's elite ability as a screen-and-roll playmaker. It was like owning a Ferrari and refusing to shift out of second gear. Many fans began questioning whether Stephanie White was truly the right fit for Clark's skill set. The contrast between the stagnant offensive sets in the second quarter and the free-flowing attack once Clark took control in the fourth was impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, the Washington Mystics executed their game plan with precision. They defended Clark physically early in the game, attacked the paint relentlessly, and capitalized on every defensive breakdown by Indiana. Their coaching staff consistently had answers, while the Fever often looked disorganized and reactive. The Mystics dominated inside, shot efficiently, and exposed Indiana's lack of rim protection, help defense, and perimeter communication. It often resembled a layup drill for Washington. Defensively, the Fever had no clear identity, and that responsibility ultimately fell on the coaching staff. As overtime ended and the final buzzer sounded, rumors surrounding White's resignation immediately began spreading. The body language on the sideline told the story before any official words were spoken. White looked defeated, the players appeared frustrated, and the disconnect between the coaching staff and the roster felt undeniable. Fans openly questioned decisions like benching Clark during hot shooting stretches, and once trust between a superstar and a coaching staff begins to erode, it becomes incredibly difficult to repair. Many believed the front office had no choice but to act before frustration consumed both the locker room and the fan base entirely. Despite the loss, there was one undeniable positive for Indiana: Clark proved beyond any doubt that her superstar ceiling remains fully intact. She still possesses the range, confidence, creativity, and competitive fire that made her the most talked-about player in basketball. Every logo three and every explosive scoring run reminded fans why she remains the centerpiece of the franchise and one of the biggest attractions in sports. However, the game also highlighted the massive gap between having a generational player and building a true championship contender. The Fever still need defensive structure, roster depth, leadership, and a coaching system that maximizes Clark's strengths instead of restricting them. For the Fever, this now feels like the end of one era and the beginning of another. Stephanie White's departure closes a short but chaotic chapter filled with questionable rotations, inconsistent identity, and enormous expectations that never fully materialized. The franchise now faces critical decisions about its future, especially with Aaliyah Boston's health still uncertain and a coaching vacancy suddenly looming. The next hire could ultimately define the entire Caitlin Clark era in Indiana. One thing is certain: the basketball world is watching closely, and after a night filled with chaos, controversy, and brilliance, the fallout is only just beginning.